Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be making this bustier top with keyhole yoke. So if this is something that interests you, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So guys, these are the fabric we are going to be using for this tutorial. This Ankara fabric and this bridal is for the yoke. So I'm going to set it aside now and we'll start drafting our pattern. So the first thing I'll do is to go ahead and mark my shoulder line measurement. My shoulder is 7 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and mark 7 inches, and on those 7 inches I'll come down by 1 inch. So after coming down by 1 inch, I'll go to my shoulder and measure my neck width of 3 inches, and I'll connect that together to the 1 inch I came down with to form my shoulder slope. So after forming the shoulder slope, I'll go ahead and insert my vertical body measurement. So I'll insert my armhole. My armhole line is 8 inches. After that, I'll insert my bust point of 10 inches, under bust of 13 inches, waistline of 16 inches, and I'm adding 1 inch as allowance. So I'm going to form a straight line on these marks. So go ahead now to label all this. That's the chest line, the bust point, the under bust, the waistline, and the last line is allowance. So after marking that, I'm going to make a straight line to connect the shoulder slope to the chest line in a straight line. Then I'm going to go ahead and find the I'll measure my bust circumference measurement, which is 8¼ of an inch. Then I'll find the midpoint of the armhole. Then I'll go in by ½ inch at the midpoint. Then I'm going to connect those points together to form my armhole. So after forming my armhole, I will go to my bust points. So I'll go to my bust points to mark out my dart line. So to mark the dart line, I'll use my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. That's 7 divided by 2, 3½. So I'll mark on the bust points, on the under bust, and on the waistline. So after marking it like that, I'm going to go ahead and form a straight line on that to connect those points together. Then I'll go to the shoulder again to measure my neck depth. I'm using the neck depth of 3 inches. I'll use my armhole curve to form my neckline. So after forming the neckline, I'll look for the midpoint of the neckline and the shoulder and the armhole, and I'll connect it to the bust point in a straight line like so. So once I connect it, I'll go back to the under bust. So at the side going to the center front, I'm going to mark ½ an inch at the under bust and on the waistline. So at the side going to the side front, I'm going to mark 1½ inches on the under bust and the waistline. So after that, I'm just going to use a straight line to connect each of those 2 points on each side together. So after connecting it together in a straight line, I'll take my armhole curve and use it to connect each point in a curvy manner to the bust points, the way I'm doing it now. So guys, after doing that, I'll take my tape and go to that line that I drew from the shoulder to the bust point, and I'll go on the side that goes to the side front, I'll mark 1 inch, and on the side that goes to the center front, I'll mark ½ an inch. So I'm going to use my armhole curve to connect those points together to the bust points. So once I connect it together, I'm going to go ahead to form my neckline for the yoke. So I want a sweetheart neckline for the yoke. So I'm just going to go ahead and place my armhole curve in a way that is going to allow me to mark out my sweetheart neckline. So after marking it like that, I'll take my tape again and go up on from the chest line by 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect from that yoke, from that 1 inch to the armhole, and I'll connect from that 1 inch to the neckline, to the sweetheart neckline, and that part is going to form our yoke. So I'm just trying to, so once I make it visible, I will label it yoke. So after labeling it yoke, I'm going to go ahead and start inserting my circumference measurement. Remember, I already marked my bust point, but I'm going to take the distance between those 2 points that we marked, which is 1.5. I added it to it, and I added 1.5 inch seam allowance. Then I'll move to my waistline, measure my waist circumference measurement, add the 1.5 inch that we are cutting off as that. Then I'm going to add 1.5 seam allowance. Once I mark out that, I'm going to connect that in a straight line. So after connecting it in a straight line, we are practically done. So I'm just trying to make some lines visible there. After that, I'll go ahead and cut it out. So after cutting it out, this is what I have as my front panel. So I'm just trying to arrange it so you can see how it looks like. So this is the front panel, and this is how the yoke parts look like. So I'm going to pack it and set it aside. So I'll go ahead to cut my back panel. So for the back panel, I've already drafted the basic bodice pattern. I've marked my zipper allowance. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark my neckline now, which is 1.5 inches. So after marking the neckline, I will go to the waistline. When at the waistline, no, before I go to the waistline, I'll mark out my nipple to nipple measurements, which is going to serve as my dart line. So after that, I'll form a straight line, then go to the waistline and go out on both sides of that line by 1/2 inch to form my dart legs. I'll connect that to the bust point. So after connecting it to the bust point, I'm going to go ahead now to insert my bust pant circumference, which is 8.25 inch. Then I'm going to add 1.5 inch seam allowance. I'll mark out my waist circumference as well, add the 1 inch dart intake and the 1.5 seam allowance. Then I'm going to go ahead and connect it together in a straight line. So after connecting it, I'll go to the waistline at the zipper allowance. To eliminate zip bulge, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. Then I'm just going to blend that 1/2 inch to the line on the chest line, like so. So after doing that, I'm done drafting out my back pattern, and I'll go ahead and cut it out. So guys, this is what I have as my back panel. So I'm going to label it back. Then remember, we have a yoke for the front panel. I want to have a yoke for the back panel as well. So I'm going to label that as well. So the yoke will start from the chest line, but I want to change the neckline. So I'm just trying to manipulate it by forming a V-shaped neckline from the chest up to the neck width. So I'm just going to go ahead now to cut that out. So after cutting it out, my back panel is ready. So I'm separating the yoke from the other parts of the body. So after doing that, we are practically done. So this is the back panel, and this right here is the front panel. So the next thing is that I'm going to go ahead now and cut out all this pattern on my fabric. So guys, after cutting all my pattern on my fabric, this is what I have. That's my yoke, and that's the center front. As you can see, I added 1/2 inch at the sides and at the top, and that's because I need this 1/2 inch to join the two sides together. Then I will need 1/2 inch to join the top to the yoke. So this is what I have for the back panel as well, and I've gone ahead to cut the linings. So I'll set aside the back panel first and work on the front panel. So the first thing I'll do is to cut out the wording for the center front and the side front. So I'm going to be cutting it on fold, and I'm not cutting full wording. I want to cut it to reach the under bust. So once I place it like that to reach the under bust, I'm going to just cut it out. Then I'll do the same again for the one of the side panel. So after cutting the one for the side part, to give it a kind of shape, I'm going to just give it a slight curve like so. So assuming there's power, I will have used my iron to gum it together, because the wording actually has a part that gum to the fabric, but there's no power. So I'm just going to go ahead and take it to my machine, and I'll sew it down like that. Then I'll do the same for the one of the center front as well. I'll sew it down so it will be firm. So after sewing it down, I'm going to pick one side of the side panel. So I'm going to make sure the right side are facing each other, making sure one side of the side part is facing the side of the center front. So I'm going to join it together like so. So when I do it together like so, like this, I'll take it to my machine, arrange it properly, and preferably you can pin it down so it will not shift. So I'm going to sew it down like so. After sewing one side, I'll sew the other side as well. So guys, after sewing the two sides, I'll go ahead to notch it now. So once I notch it, I will pull it out and pull out my bust. So this is what I have after doing that. As you can see, it's not standing properly, and that's because the wording that I use is so light. So if you want yours to stand well, make sure you use a medium sized wording, or you should double the wording that you want to use. So now it's time to work on our keyhole yoke. So to do this, I'm going to be folding my front panel into two like this, making sure that the midpoints aligns, and I'm just going to trim off the excesses I have at the top first before doing that. So after trimming off the excesses I have at the top, I'm going to fold it into two like this. Then I'm going to unpin the pattern paper from my yoke. So after unpinning it, I'll place it on each other. I'll place the yoke and the fabric on it, and the main bodies on each other like this, making sure they align properly, and I'm going to go ahead now to pin them down. So guys, after that, I'm going to look for where I want my yoke to start from. So I want my yoke to start from immediately after the joining of the center at the side front. So I'm just going to go up by 2 inches and just connect those 2 points together. The shape you can go for depends on what you want. So I'm just going for a normal random shape. So after that, I will unpin the main bodies, and I'll go ahead now to trim off the points that I have already marked out. So after trimming it off, we formed the keyhole. So to secure this down part, we are going to cut another piece of this. So I went to take another piece of this fabric I used as my yoke. So I'm going to pin it together and cut it out. So I will be having two yokes for the front panel. So after cutting it out, I'm going to lay both yokes on each other. So I'll make sure that the right sides are facing each other. Then I'll sew it at the top and at the down. So guys, after sewing it, this is what I have. Like I said earlier, there's no power, so I could not press it. So after sewing, just give it a good press so it can look more beautiful than this. Then after that, I'm going to go ahead now and pin it to the pin the yoke to the neckline of our main bodies like so. Remember, we started we cut out the keyhole from after our darts, so that's where I'm starting to join it from. So after pinning it together like so, I'm going to lay it down. Then I've gone ahead to join my lining together. So I'll place the right side of my lining on the right side of my fabric, and I'm going to go ahead and sew it down with half an inch, making sure that the yoke is in the middle like that. So I'll take it to my machine now and sew it down. Then I'll go ahead and work on the back panel, join the linings together, join the yoke to the main bodies, and take in the darts. So guys, this is what I have after joining the yoke to the front panel, and I've worked on the back panel as well. So I'm just going to go ahead now and lay the right side of the front panel and the back panel on each other. I'll join the shoulder together, then I will join them together on both sides with 1.5 inches that we left for our seam allowance. So once I do that, I'll wear it for my mannequin so you can see the final look. So guys, this is the final look of our bustier top with keyhole yoke. Thank you so much guys for watching this video. Please do well to like this video, subscribe to this channel to enjoy more content, and I'll see you in the next one.